The important thing to understand is that the parking lot next to the county center has a revenue stream attached to it. The people that go in and pay $7 or $10 at special period of time put a revenue in. And what we have done basically is transfer that asset from the main budget of the county government into the budget of the local development corporation, which is a separate financial entity, which is still run through the county's auspices, but not on our main county budget, our operating budget. By making that transaction, the county budget saves $22 million, which equates to 4% in property tax increase. If we did not make this transaction, your 2% property tax would become a 6% property tax, which is something that nobody wants to see. Now, the LDC, the Local Development Corporation, this financial entity that's been created, will then own the parking lot, and in the owning of the parking lot, as money is paid by people parking there, that will be the revenue necessary to pay off the bonds that was used to buy the asset from the county in the transaction of $22 million. The question of parkland really isn't that critical an issue. When you look at it, if that area had been designated as parkland as part of the Bronx River Reserve, it's been used as a parking lot since time immemorial, and it will continue to be used as a parking lot. This is not a park where you're cutting down trees. This is an area that's been used as a parking lot. Commuters use it, people going into the county center use it as well. And that's how it's going to be used under the LDC. In terms of its legality, it's perfectly legal, assuming that we go and get a parkland dededication from the state, which they have almost always approved every time a local municipality applies for these kinds of considerations. And it's very simple because the use is the same use, whether it's owned by the county or owned by the LDC. It's really just a change in use. We had to go to Albany to get legislation to approve the creation of the Children's Museum at Playland. The Children's Museum is a park usage, but it wasn't part of the original Playland parkland usage. So we needed to go and get legislation, which we got very easily, unanimously, which allowed us to have a children's museum at Playland. There was nothing illegal about that action. It required a certain state approval, and we received it, and we went forward. And that's the same situation we are with this. We'll need the state approval to do something. We need to complement that by setting aside other county-owned land and designate it as parkland. That's currently not designated as parkland, so that we balance out that which is set aside for this purpose. And we expect that it's a very perfunctory thing. So again, I think what you have happening in these things is people are looking at a budget and they're scrutinizing it. And of course, in this heightened political environment, everybody wants to jump to a conclusion. Oh my God, look at this. But once you understand what's behind it and you drill down, you see that these are very reasonable transactions. Behind all of these actions is a very simple principle. We want to make sure that we protect as low as we can the property tax levy for Westchester County. And it's not possible to do that unless we take certain decisions that when you isolate them might seem odd, but when you put them in the context of an overall budget, give you a budget increase that is lower than Putnam's, lower than Rockland's, consistent with where we were last year, consistent with many of our local municipal governments at a 2% range. People had predicted that we were going to come in at 6% and 8%, and they had sort of an ideological approach to these things. We have been pragmatic in our approach to these things. So the transfer of property that would go from the county to the local development corporation, which is still controlled within the county's aegis, represents a transaction on paper, but it doesn't change the usage of the land, and it doesn't impinge upon our usable parkland in the least. I expect the state legislature will be supportive of our effort, and we'll be able to complete the transaction sometime before the end of the year, and then we'll be able to have the revenue as part of our overall revenue stream for the county.